He put a camera on the wrecking ball.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HMP. I am your fish out of water host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, he too is known as the legend with the leotard, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
I said keep it private.
Sorry. And just like Captain Invincible, he too gets harassed for wearing his underwear in public. Welcome back to the show, our little chorus boy, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear. Also been accused of premature anti-fascism.
Oh, who amongst us hasn't been a little premature on that from time to time? Welcome back, everybody.
That's what they prosecuted this guy for, but I'm interrupting.
That's quite all right. Don't worry. He's back, and he's chomping at the bit, everybody. Bruce has been on a little bit of a sabbatical for us here and everything, but fresh and ready to go for a new one, huh?
Oh, yeah. It was a nice break. I'm like the old folks say, tanned and rested.
Excellent, because we brought you back for it's a little bit of a sad thing, because today we're talking about the return of Captain Invincible. Didn't know Captain Invincible, was a thing, much less now that he's back, but we're talking about him this week because sadly, Alan Arkin just died, and lo and behold, someone shares this fact. And I see it, and I'm like, of all people, Alan Arkin is in a superhero film. I was like, okay, I need to see what this is. So not only is this a superhero film, this also stars Christopher Lee. And if that wasn't enough, it also, get this, is a musical.
Sort of.
Kind of.
Sort of.
There's musical numbers.
One of the Rocky Horror folks worked on this, and it shows in a couple of scenes.
What? Yes. You don't say. Who'd have known? But before we get to the return of Captain Invincible, we do have to say a big thank you to the people that support the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, huge Dinger Zone this week, talking with Bruce about all of his fun stuff. We also talk a bit about The Room, Tommy Wiseau's The Room. I got to see a screening with one of the cast members. So why don't you check out patreon.com/HMP. Join up today at any rate. Doesn't matter what it is, no matter how big, no matter how small. Just find a number that makes sense to you and say, hey, I wish, HMP showed up every month in my box and this is what I would pay to do it. If that's $1 on up, whatever it is, patreon.com/HMP. And if you can't do that, for heaven's sake, at least share this show with a friend. Drop us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify, aka Humdinger.
Humdinger.
We really appreciate that. And again, patreon.com/HMP. Let's get into it, boys. Here is the IMDb plotline for the return of Captain Invincible. As we know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. In World War II, Captain Invincible used his powers against the Nazis as he was a hero. And he was a hero. But when they accused him of supporting the communists, he retired to Australia. Now, after U.S. Secret Service superweapon is stolen, he's asked to come back to help. Unfortunately, he's an alcoholic now. This is written by Steven D'Souza, who you probably might know from little tiny movies called Die Hard, Commando, and 48 Hours. It was written also by Andrew Gaddy. You'd never heard of anything that he's done. And Peter Smalley, who only has done 2 episodes of Chopper Squad just before this. I don't know what Chopper Squad is, but that was a pretty cool name for a television show about motorcycle cops. This was directed by Felipe Mora, who you don't know anything that he's directed, but his one movie that sounds really good is I Was a Communist Werewolf.
Ooh.
I would watch that show.
I think I may have to add that to a certain list.
Guys, this is a little bit, we don't have this nearly enough, but we got a letter.
Bale's here.
This one comes to us from King Solomon's Frog. He writes, "Hi guys, I know this week is supposed to be about Alan Arkin, but in January, while watching the Sam J. Jones The Spirit, I saw the name Steven D'Souza in the credits and thought it sounded familiar, so I searched him up on IMDb only to confirm my suspicions. He also had writing credits for Die Hard, Commando, 48 Hours, and The Flintstones. Looking further back in his filmography, I saw this week's movie, The Return of Captain Invincible, which was billed as, get this, in an Australian superhero comedy/musical. So there was no way I was going to miss out on this movie with those qualifiers. So I watched it straight away. I thought about recommending it at the time, but fresh off of my high of suggesting the failed pilot month, I didn't want to feel the buzzkill of rejection, so I kept it to myself. I'm glad you chose to review it now, and if I remember correctly, this will have been the only second musical that H&P has reviewed. So I hope that you read this, and I hope you read this because I get to hear the mailbag theme, and I hope that Bruce is back soon. Wish granted. And finally, I know that this is, And finally, I know at least what I'm watching next week. D'Souza wrote a series called The Powers of Matthew Starr, with the main character billed as high school superhero alien prince. So maybe a H&P review. Until next time, King Solomon's Frog.
Thank you, Froggy.
Thanks a lot, Froggy. First of all, we're putting that one into play from now on, I think.
Thank you, Froggy.
Thank you, Froggy. So we're gonna we might check that out at some point. Our calendars actually, believe it or not, filling up faster than we had realized here. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But let's get into the return of Captain Invincible. Let me sell everybody on this superhero film from the recently departed Alan Arkin, because this sucker's got everything. It starts out with news on the march. You know what other movie starts out with news on the march? Citizen Kane. So you know you're in for a good time. Mm-hmm. We start in the 1940s. We got wall busting, tree twisting, Boy Scouts, the McCarthy trials. Fast forward to the 1980s. We got shouting and dancing on cliff faces, New York City, a group of villains out of John Waters' movie led by Saruman. The opera, a scroll with deformities, I guess. Then 14 minutes into the movie, and it becomes a musical. And I didn't even plan this, guys. That was just an extra bonus that was added into this. I had no clue. We got a flamethrower punch buggy, fun with magnets, horizontal mambo on the Capitol lawn while aliens watch. Okay.
It was something I did not understand. I can't wait till we discuss that.
Chipmunk talk, vacuum attack, scantily clad background dancers, Peter Gunn theme for some reason, a fish machine gun. You heard right. Get your seat ready for the great pie fight now with 100% more guns. Face slicing, schmeckle jokes, LARPing in a factory. Christopher Lee sings a song about booze, and it's the only superhero movie I've ever seen where the damsel rides the superhero's side saddle. This movie's got everything.
I love it that his kryptonite is Kentucky bourbon. We need more superheroes like that.
Well, let's start with Alan Arkin as far as like an actor and everything is concerned. What are kind of thoughts and stuff? What are your favorite Alan Arkin roles?
I always enjoyed Catch-22. Wasn't that him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the beginning and end of my backstory with Alan Arkin. I really like Catch-22, but he's in the kind of movies that, like, I mean, Sean, I think you can speak up for me that when his movies were coming out real time, we weren't in the demographic they were aimed at. So I never really caught up on him in retrospect.
No. And, Alan Arkin really didn't super reach my radar. Yes, I had seen Catch-22 and he's great in it, but I didn't really understand how great an actor he was until much later in his life. Like Little Miss Sunshine comes to mind, where he's just so great in there. And so, when you go backwards on his filmography, you realize like, oh, this guy has been playing this type of person his whole life. And, I think that when cast correctly in something, he is absolutely perfect. And this is definitely not that movie. I don't know while I was watching this movie, I couldn't figure out is because it's 1981. Is that when this movie came out?
83 is when it was released, but it had like a 2-year development before it got released.
So what I couldn't figure out is that in 1983, are all of the jokes that they're saying about superheroes, is this all stuff that is just like already jokes that are just in the zeitgeist that everybody has already? Or is this one of the originators of those jokes?
I think this is a direct one-to-one, like somebody, probably Andrew Gaddy, watched It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman after Saturday Night Live or whenever the heck they showed that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I want to do one, but with Alan Arkin in Australia. Like, I want to do it only for real. I want to do a movie and not a stage production.
I like the idea that those are things that he wrote down.
Unlicensed.
He wrote it on a message thing and it's just like, I'm going to tick these off when I get them. They have to be in Australia.
I want to make the cheapest movie I can possibly make.
The thing is, it's not that cheap.
It is, though. I mean, for the level of movie that they're trying to make here. So, like, let me go back.
Well, first off, let me say what I read was Australian dollars. So that threw me for a loop because I thought it was US dollars. But Australian dollars, I will give you some perspective. 7 million I'm sorry, Australian dollars, 7 million. I don't know what that's worth in US dollars, but I know that when you only make 55,000 at the box office, no matter what the currency is,
that don't translate.
It's like our profit was approximately minus 100%.
And that's what I mean here. So like, who was this movie made for? Like kids don't want to see this movie.
People, at $5 a ticket, 10,000 people are who this movie was made
people
for.
Like kids don't want to see this movie. People who are into superheroes don't want to see this movie.
No.
Old people don't want to see this movie because they think it's for kids. And people who like musicals wouldn't see this movie because the music isn't that great.
Yeah, and there's not
enough
only
songs.
It's
not only not that great, but this is like the uncanny valley of musical. Like, you can have a couple of musical numbers or you can have wall-to-wall music, but this has like that weird like it's either too much or not enough, but it's definitely not just right. Like, the amount of music in this doesn't work.
It has the same amount of music. And
in case you don't know, I am an experienced veteran of musical theater, so I know what I speak.
Veteran of
the
stage.
Same amount of music that the Blues Brothers movie has in it. Except the Blues Brothers is done by like people who are experts at that like in that genre. And yes, I would not categorize the Blues Brothers as a musical,
because the music is in story, because they're a band.
Yes,
they're not an evil Dr. Midnight or whatever the guy's name is with unexplained lingerie clad dancers in the background while you're singing for no apparent reason.
I love that so much because it was just like, wait a minute, what are we doing now? Because that's one of the great parts about it is that they hide it for like I said, 14 minutes before any musical number happens. And then you get hit with it and it's not even all that good.
This feels like somebody who wanted to make a musical, but didn't think that they were good. Like, they were suffering from a little imposter syndrome, but then they put the first musical number in and they're like, what the heck, I'll add a few more, but they were holding back the whole time. Like, they never really put their heart into it. That's what this feels like. Like, I was afraid to make a musical, but I tried, but then I didn't really try hard because I thought it would suck. That's what it feels like.
Got through and was like, oh man, writing these songs is a lot harder than I thought. Like, I like the one was like really good. And then when I realized I got to write 6, I was like, yo boy.
So does this movie pass the phone test for you guys?
Oh, heavens, no.
I wish it did. It was like the problem was like even at an hour and a half, which, you know, we've been drilling on films for being too long, and even at an hour and a half, this is too long. It wears out by about 45 minutes. You could it's an extended SNL sketch, more or less.
To steal a line from my friend while talking about Indiana Jones over this past week. Every minute felt like 3. That's what this movie felt like to me.
It doesn't book along, and that's what you're right with the kids and stuff. This isn't a kid's thing because it's too slow. You would not keep a child's attention with this thing.
And a kid doesn't want to look at Alan Arkin as a superhero. It's just, it doesn't work.
A boozed out superhero.
Did either of you guys read sort of like the story of why this didn't get U.S. distribution?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, because that's also kind of a funny story to me. It seems like this is the perfect movie for this story, but they did have North American distribution lined up by a company that went bankrupt and out of business 3 days before the premiere was scheduled.
Oh, man.
Wow.
So they just, like, at that point, it was just a done deal. Nobody cared to pick it up. They were like, we planned a premiere that clearly isn't going to happen. And of course, by then, Alan Arkin's not doing more promotion or anything. He's doing his own thing. People are doing their own thing. But it was just a funny story to me that their reason that they didn't get U.S. distribution probably still going to be a flop, but maybe it doubles its money from 55,000 Australian dollars to 110,000 mixed dollars.
The whole Australia thing was weird.
I mean, what are you going to do in that situation? I mean, it's not like there were enough people in 1980 who were like, oh, you know what? I should really perfect my American accent. That comes later. But at this point now, there's not a ton of those actors there. And so like looking at this thing from the angle of the newsreels, you have Alan Arkin, it seems like the theme of this movie is be afraid of the future. The past was way better. Because
1950, yeah, he specifically calls out that year.
I was fully expecting for that transformation to happen to the character by the end of the movie, that he was going to be like, oh, you know what? We shouldn't be fearful of the future. We should embrace it and blah, 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 blah. This movie said, nope.
I don't want to do that. I don't like it. It's new and it's gross. Get it away.
Ah, crap, man. I know I knew I should have. I should have said the number before we started the podcast. And I was just gonna text Bruce.
16.
How long do you think it would take Adam to do his bad impersonation?
16 minutes. First of all, it's dead on. Second of all,
no, it's not. It sounds like Adam Portrait with the modulated voice.
This is the best Alan Arkin I could do.
Now that was pretty good there. I like that one. Now, what would you think,
are there spoilers ahead?
What would you think?
You know what? I hate your guts.
What would you think if you heard somebody like Peter Berg or Vince Gilligan was a big fan of this movie?
It wouldn't surprise me because it's so wrong-headed, and there's so many big mistakes made in this thing that I could see someone who is in the film industry watching this and just enjoying the hell out of it.
I could see Peter Berg watching this movie and seeing something there and making Hancock. Like when I'm watching, I'm wondering, like, is this something that a guy as a kid watched and he grew up and made Hancock?
Maybe.
Yeah, I kind of got that vibe from it.
Yeah, listen, that's not too far off here, and And
I mean, really clever stuff. 1983, that's even kind of predating like the Watchmen remake of comics, the Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns sort of.
But that's my major question with this thing was it clever?
Alan Moore-esque in a weird way, like the alcoholism and the government.
But that's my question: is this indeed actually clever? Because watching it with modern eyes, like, there is literally not a single surprise that happens in this movie. There's not a single thing where you're like, man, I really didn't see that coming.
But an alcoholic superhero who was once, I mean, this is got a lot of Watchmen in it, man. And I know I'm accused of maybe seeing Watchmen where Watchmen don't live, but I'm seeing some Watchmen here. Like, did Alan Moore love this movie? Was he in Australia in 1983?
I would love for this to actually be true, and that like all of Watchmen came from this crummy movie, and he was just like, listen, there's something there. Like the meat is bad, but the skeleton, there's something in there. I just got to craft it and make it better. And then he made one of the best comics of all time.
And I gotta tell you, I know Christopher Lee has to be able to sing better than he sang in this movie. He did not like singing for this movie, I bet.
Definitely not.
I don't know that he liked doing anything for this movie. He doesn't look like he's having a great time.
Am I imagining this, or does he like sing metal with metal bands when he was alive?
Trust me, it was about as close as this. It's like a lot has been put together with the lore of Christopher Lee. And listen, I enjoy the man, big fan, but we made him out to be this kind of like, what's his name? The karate guy. Chuck Norris.
Oh, Ralph
Chuck
Macchio.
Chuck Norris. We made him out to be this kind of Chuck Norris level of, legend sort of thing. It's like he did this and that and the other. And like some of the things are true, but then there's like, yes, he technically did this metal album, but I'm sorry, it sucks. It sucks and it's terrible. It's fun that he did it, but it's not good. It's not good, people. Get over it.
So it's not any better than what we see in this movie?
No.
then I will take a pass on purchasing or listening to it.
You should just actually purchase it. Don't even listen. Just go ahead and purchase that. Make it the super deluxe set, and you're good to go.
Just to help his estate. They're probably struggling.
They put on a little record every time that they like, yeah, we sold another one. Some idiot bought this. I can't believe it.
Fire up the trombone.
Who do you think they wanted for this role? Because you don't immediately look, I love Alan Arkin as much as anyone does. I think he's a tremendous talent, but there's no way your go-to guy is Alan Arkin.
I'm going to tell you, I think that Andrew Gaddy, who's the person whose feet I'm going to put this on, like Steven D'Souza was a gun for hire, I'm sure. Like, I don't think he approached Gaddy and said, let me write this for you.
Yes.
But, man, I'm sorry. I got sidetracked and forgot the question.
It's who do you think the first hire, who they wanted to hire first?
I think Andrew Gaddy was picturing a Woody Allen type because because I think like the Casino Royale thing, right, where they had the Woody Allen type as the spy.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably they wanted the neurotic type. And in 1983, who's more neurotic than Woody Allen?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good guess, actually.
What do you guys think about the design of this outfit that he's got here?
It looks pretty all over the place. like this is clearly once again, like a person who's never seen a musical decided to make a musical, and a person who's never seen a superhero decided to go with sort of a red, white, and blue patriotic theme, but also with a Falcon theme. And then also like his powers are magnetism, but also flight. They're just all over the place. And that I kind of like, because that reminds me of, I mean, come on, guys, when you're like 7 years old and you're making up your own superhero, this is what it's like, because it's just all over the place.
I could fly, and then I could do some magnets. Yeah.
And I got Falcon Eagle claws on my shoulders.
It does look like that. Sometimes. It does look like that. Is it supposed to look like that?
I think that it looks like that because that's the level of enthusiasm and thought was very childlike. I mean, adults didn't do superheroes in 1983.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like a 14-year-old drew those claws on his shoulder and everything.
I mean, when you say the Saturday Night Live skit, I mean, it's that level of creation because you're like, nobody takes this seriously anyway, so we just throw everything there so they get the idea, okay, weird superhero suit.
I enjoyed all the the newsreel stuff. I thought that was like a clever way, at least for them to kind of give us the backstory for all of this. And, you know,
my favorite part of the newsreel was when they said our hidden cameras caught it. And then you start to see like pushes in and pulls out and panning.
I love that stuff so much. Our hidden cameras. And here are here are the 58 setups for all the secret cameras that we got.
We're going to get a Dutch angle when he breaks through the wall. Then we're going to push in.
We're going to have sound. We're going to put some music behind it.
That they had great sound. Like I wanted to see who was holding those booms. Our booms were disguised as coconuts.
We got the green screen. We honestly, we've seen worse green screen out there. I'll at least say that. Some of that green screen was halfway decent for what, they were doing at the time.
I'm not complaining. And I was really impressed with their, they were doing they wanted to do fake flying video to get the word out that he's back on the job. And I kind of liked it that they sort of showed us this is how we're doing what you're actually seeing in the movie. Like there's no doubt in my mind that we were seeing the actual setup they were using.
Yeah, not
and
far.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just, it made it seem like they were actually doing something. Well, at least comparatively to so I guess some of the things that we see, something fresh. It's just like, we've never seen people doing crap like this.
Just if you were to guess, what somebody in an art department that has no budget but needs to come up with another set, would it be like a cheap thing to do to say, how about this next set is like an actual film set that looks like our film set?
What if we just turn the cameras around and pointed them back at us? Production value out the wazoo.
I mean, I think that's literally what they did. There's so many cheats in this thing for and not only are they using stock footage, they're reusing stock footage in certain points in this movie.
It feels very stage production the way that it's blocked and shot.
It does.
And stuff too.
It does. And I think that's fine if that's the movie you're trying to make, but the level, it fails on any level they were going for. Right. So if you're trying to make like a stage production-y thing, like that's fine. You can do that. That's been done, and it's been done well. But like this feels more like the Superman musical that we saw a million years ago. Up and
Yes.
away. Is that what that was?
Yep.
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman.
Yeah, oh,
That's what it is. That like this feels more like that than it does like Chicago, you know?
Yeah, oh, by far.
Yeah, Chicago's a good movie.
and so like I think that the amount of money used, the casting, and it's not just Alan Arkin, although casting Alan Arkin was a big mistake. I think that casting half of the cast that's in this was a big mistake. Like the lady who's the Australian, the one who's riding him side saddle at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like she is so woefully miscast in this movie.
And I agree with you 100%. I feel for some reason it's like I feel like I'm punching up when I say Alan Arkin was miscast, but I feel a little guilty by like, who knows, man? You know what I mean? Like for her, I feel bad, but you're right. She doesn't do a great job.
No, she doesn't. And you know, Christopher Lee is just fine, and he's doing what is expected of him, and he's pulling it off quite well for someone who clearly cares about as much as about this movie as Harrison Ford did for Cowboys and Aliens.
Yeah. I'm showing up, I'm getting my check. You won't see me spit on you, but it'll be as close as we can get before that happens.
Right.
It is like he's there. It looks like they probably had him for like maybe a week. And
yeah, I think that you know what, you don't go to Australia for less than a week.
Who knows if he was even in Australia? You know, there's part of that. I'm sure.
Good point.
But
there was a lawsuit about whether or not this movie was Australian enough to get the tax incentive.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because even though it clearly takes part in Australia, you know what I mean, like Sydney Opera House, the late, but the story revolves around him going back to the United States. So I guess the Australian Film Commission didn't like that, but they won their lawsuit and got their tax incentive.
And they said,
which they definitely needed when you see the box office.
We never traveled to New York. It's all stock footage. Hello.
Yes.
It's like we got a break. We don't have to pay as much taxes on those sweet profits we didn't make.
Hey, Alan Arkin, when you were ever in New York, did you ever just take shots of the skyscrapers there? Can we use that for our movie?
I like that idea. I also like that in the big temptation of the alcohol scene there near the end when Christopher Lee's doing all the dancing and he finally agrees to drink something despite all the top shelf liquor. He hands him a can of Sterno because he wants to go straight to rock bottom. I thought that was a nice touch, guys.
I was hoping he was going to drink the Sterno. I was just like, wow, we're going here.
Sterno, that's also my next question. Like, is that something people used to do? Because
I always have heard. I've heard of it as a joke.
Okay,
but that's about as much as I don't. Who knows how? Yeah, maybe there's a bit of truth in that. Some crazo.
Because if you've ever been to a camping store, Sterno's not that cheap. Because I'd imagine it takes several cans to get a good one going.
Oh, I don't know. It's probably not.
One can of Sterno's all you need for a whole night of partying.
Oh, you know, usually when in my younger days, I could go 2-3 cans of Sterno, but at this age, I'm down to just one.
Yeah. Sorry, Sean. I don't think you expected me to go that direction.
Oh, it's fine. Of all of the music in this movie, that's the one musical number that feels the most like competent people wrote it.
Oh, the alcohol one?
The alcohol one. I mean,
yes.
I know, and they saved it to the end for a reason. You know that they knew this is our best bullet.
It's a fun song, but it doesn't belong in this movie at all.
I'm pretty sure this is the one that was written by the Rocky Horror people.
That feels correct.
And that would explain kind of the choreography with the lighting is Rocky Horror lighting, the color palette changes. But anyway,
and out of nowhere, here come all the backup singers.
Now, I've got to say, the most interesting thing about this movie to me is the alien aspect to this, and the way they move, and it's clearly, you know, sort of like a Greek chorus,
yes,
with the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see way more of them and way less of a guy who was who is the president of the United States, who is
Who
the
was a Boy
worst
Scout.
cast. He's the worst cast person of the entire movie.
Strangely-
it's so bad.
Strangely, I thought he would have made a better Captain Invincible because he's
Yes.
not a very good president.
Yes, he would have made a much better and put Alan Arkin in as the president.
Now, according to Wikipedia, which I'm mining for trivia because for some reason I'm not a fountain of comments on this movie, but Terry Pratchett did have a review of this movie.
What?
Mhm.
Which is kind of cool that Terry Pratchett watched it. And, you know, Terry Pratchett, I feel like, was taken from us too soon. So every word he shared publicly deserves attention, including his review of The Return of Captain Invincible starring Alan Arkin. And he called the film, quote, a series of bad moments pasted together with great songs and the budget of 4 pence. Now,
Yep.
for those of you who don't speak proper English, 4 pence is not a lot of money. Because I know 6 pence is still not enough to be richer.
It's one of those that is correctly said. That is well said. Who'd have guessed that guy would come up with a good statement towards this movie? My question is, where does that become public? Like how? Like why would he feel the need to speak to this movie?
He's an avid letterbox writer.
Well, there is a website called Words from the Master. And this is chapter 5, Thoughts and Themes. And it's a book somebody wrote about Terry Pratchett. Now, the problem is they have quotes, but they don't have sources. So the issue is, what do you want? Do you want an accurate quote or an interesting conversation piece?
Very good.
I'd rather have an interesting conversation piece, quite frankly.
'Cause I thought,
Magnets.
well, I'll just chase down the footnote. And the footnote said Terry Pratchett quotes. And I was like, well, hell, that's not a footnote. So I had to Google search because I am a former reference librarian.
So we got I love the vacuum attack. It's the lamest ever. And I also feel like Sam Raimi watched that and goes, oh, write that down,
Yes.
write that down.
That felt very Raimi. In fact, that was probably the only part of the movie that definitely passed my phone test because that caught my attention. That and the first time he turned into a magnet and like all the forks and stuff in the room hit him. And then they Benny Hilled it by having like the buttons fly off of the dress or the shirt.
Oh, okay.
blouse.
Let's talk about that. That is one of the great excuses
Also,
for
in
this
Benny
entire
Hill
movie.
fashion, somehow the corset or the bra covers more flesh than the shirt did. Like, I don't know how they did that back then.
Yeah, you've got it's the full size. It's not like we're not just we this is a PG rated film. We're not just going to give you a regular old bustier. No. We're going to go full thing here because we're decent. Yet at the same time too, the PG-13 rating doesn't apply. So we got a couple of cursings in here and a couple of other things. You're like, oh, this would not make a PG movie these days.
Oh man, what year did Mad Max come out? Because I want to think there's a time when George Miller had to work on this movie to make ends meet.
Ooh, maybe it's a little later. It's not before. I don't know. Filmography of all those Mad Max movies messes me up. I don't know.
1979.
Oh, so he's already beyond working on
He's already
this movie
beyond
by then.
Thunderdome. But the magnet stuff is like, let's talk about that because like that's a weird power. Obviously, Magneto is going to be the first one that we think of here and everything. But like, they didn't give him like a plethora of powers. It's just magnets, and it seems like a really odd choice.
What are you
had a
talking about? He's got a
computer brain.
supercomputer brain.
Oh yeah, I
he
forgot
can
about this.
fly, but he has to say up into the green or something. I kind of didn't follow the Greatest American Hero subplot where he's trying to remember how to use his powers.
Yeah, that's kind of a lame thing where you're just like, oh, I don't get how this works anymore.
And not to mention, like I said, Greatest American Hero did it better a few years later. Be kind of hard to do it worse.
No, you couldn't do it. So again, the aliens, like his family, his mom and dad having sex on the Capitol rotunda,
Yeah.
and then
And
aliens
I
are
really
flying
thought
over,
that-
and then that's how he gets his power. That's maybe the best superhero origin story
Totally.
ever.
Now, I've already mentioned Woody Allen once before, but there's like that Woody Allen movie where he's dressed up like a sperm and they're all like racing. to be the one who fertilizes the egg. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about at all?
Yeah, everything you wanted to know about that.
Okay, yeah, good. I was worried like I'm rambling on about the scene and you guys haven't seen it before. I was expecting a rip off of that where the aliens were actually going to, go through the seminal vesicles and enter into the domain that they needed to make a baby.
One of my favorite scenes, for whatever reason, is the big deli fight where a guy comes out with a machine gun shaped like a fish. I don't know why.
Like it too,
but
that I think somebody who is a little bit more cultural perspective than I do probably thought it was really funny when Alan Arkin realized the delicatessen owner wasn't really Jewish because he put mayonnaise on a sandwich.
Yeah, on a corned beef.
Did that make either of you laugh?
No, but I mean, he's right. You never put mayonnaise on a corned beef sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like that was correct. Where he's like, that's
put
wrong.
Mayonnaise on any sandwich, so I don't know these things.
See, that's a mistake. I like the people that I'm not anti mayonnaise by any chance, but on a corned beef sandwich, yes, that ain't where that goes.
Okay.
But if you're ham and cheese, whatever, throw a little mayonnaise.
Oh my Lord, shut up.
A Jewish deli is not going to have ham and cheese, man.
No, they're not.
You're 2 strikes against you on that sandwich. Even I know that.
Oh, I did like the when the guy's face at the end got sliced off by the slicer.
That was pretty amazing. That's
that
is maybe the only part of this movie where I was like, wow.
Again, I felt Sam Raimi on that one too.
That was another
the
this is a PG-rated film.
I couldn't get a word at edgewise earlier, so with the vacuum thing in the vacuum store, it was like it was made by Sam Raimi if Sam Raimi didn't know how to shoot a movie, because it is the most boring scene you've ever seen, because it's shot wide and because you're supposed to shoot comedy wide, right?
Yeah.
There's it's not it's not lit interesting. It is so blah that that could have been a really great scene. If think of the way that Sam Raimi would have shot that scene. It would have been incredible.
Here's what it feels like to me is Sam Raimi talking to a friend, like I'm not going to say a Coen brother because they're good enough to pull this off, but he's talking to a friend who says, "Hey, I need an idea." And he's, "Look, I got this great idea." He tells him this beautiful shot that he can do and really give his movie some pop. And then he goes to see it, and this is what his friend does. That's what it feels like to me.
That's what you executed with what I told you?
Scenarios.
I gave you Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I just figured out one of the main influences of this movie is the Batman 66 TV show. Because it's shot without it's kind of what it's shot like, right? I mean, that's maybe the biggest influence of this thing. The difference being that even though he's in the zeitgeist now as he's such a he's a beloved actor, and he should be, Adam West, but he's kind of the secret sauce to that show. He's not, he should never have been Batman, but he's so interesting as Batman, you can't help but like that show.
And I still say, test of time, when we're dead and gone, he may be still the most remembered Batman.
Maybe.
It's possible.
Maybe.
George Washington probably was an average president at best, but he's well remembered because of where he was.
Yeah, quite formidable when you're numero uno.
Me and my hot takes, I'm making friends with that one, aren't I?
Our Washington contingent comes out and just goes, "Listen, I enjoyed this show for 8 years," and then suddenly you started talking smack about George Washington.
Our downloads in Virginia bottom out.
In the Mount Vernon area, we aren't getting the heat we used to get.
We picked the wrong place for our first live show. Live from the Washington Monument. It's Bruce.
Overall, I just, like you said, this doesn't pass that phone test because even though it's 90 minutes, you're right. Every minute feels like 3 minutes long. It doesn't move. And for something that has musical numbers and stuff in it, you would feel like that could help, boost the show along a little bit, and it never does. It actually derails things and makes things worse.
And it's a weird distraction. Also, I had seen the new Indiana Jones movie not that many days beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So during the newsreel footage, I'm totally thinking oh, this is what they were trying to do with Harrison Ford.
They couldn't quite get it in that one, but they did it years ago in 1983 with a little
They
movie.
de-aged Alan Arkin so much better.
You just got to put a big wig on.
I will say this, the wig looks good. He looks
does.
good in the wig, like the old
It
one
does.
and the young one. It kind of works for him. And I'm going to be honest with you, like, you know, I've held my cards a little bit on Mr. Arkin. I was never the hugest fan because, frankly, I will say this. Alan Arkin was the best Alan Arkin that ever Alan Arkined.
Exactly. I mean, that's why you hire him, because he's Alan Arkin.
But for as goofy and stupid as this role is, he is acting. He is doing some bits. He does have his little drunken bits and his times when he's down and stuff. And, for the most part, he came to play with this role. It may not be what he wanted to do at this particular point in his life, but like he's like, I'm an actor. I just need to go ahead and do this. And he does with what he can, I think. But, your results may vary.
I haven't seen The Rise of Gru yet, but I heard he's in that.
Nope, didn't see that one. I can only get so much Minions before, you don't want to have, too much good stuff in your life. You want to,
You don't want to.
Yeah, you got to parse it out.
you eat steak every
exactly. I'm a
day. I don't
shot.
think so. No, sir.
You might be in the mood for new Minions, but you've already used up all your new Minions. So you got to save a little Minion for when that day comes.
Thankfully, your aunt keeps sending you those memes.
What would I do if
Whew,
not for that?
thank goodness. If we don't have anything else, I think we need to find out how this superhero musical relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Good evening, Mr. Stallone. Stephen E. D'Souza is one of the screenwriters on The Return of Captain Invincible. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it should, because at the top of the show, King Solomon's Frog talked about Philip E. D'Souza. But because you've also worked with him before. He also wrote some of the best action movies of the 80s. Like King Solomon's Frog said, he wrote Die Hard, 48 Hours, Commando. Why isn't this guy the most famous writer in Hollywood? And what did he write after the 80s? What's that? The Flintstones movie. Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yes.
Hey.
The Street Fighter movie. My God, what happened to this guy? And then in the 2000s, he wrote a movie called Blast. I've never even heard of that movie. Blast, starring Eddie Griffin and Breckin Meyer.
That's right up Bruce's alley.
In the Tomb Raider sequel, not even the original one, the sequel.
Oh.
And Judge Dredd. Mary's handsome husband, Joseph Italian Stallion. What happened to this guy? You can literally see the collapse happening reading through his filmography. How can one of the guys who wrote Die Hard be the same guy who wrote the Street Fighter movie? If I may steal a line from one of Stephen E. D'Souza's own movies, Bonnie, that guy's writing is falling off of an effing cliff. And if I may go backwards for a second, Mr. Stallone, what in the hell is Blast? And has there ever been a more mid-2000s sentence than a movie starring Eddie Griffin and Breckin Meyer? Well, to find out more about this movie that never actually existed, I went to the greatest source for intelligent movie discussion, the IMDb user reviews. This one comes from someone who calls themselves Lost in Funk UK.
Oh.
And their review is entitled Tugboat Captain to the Rescue. A bank has been robbed by Vinnie Jones, and now he and his team have turned terrorists and hijacked an oil rig off the coast of California. On this rig, they've set up an electromagnetic pulse with the intent of using it in order to cover up their crime and be free from prosecution. However, they did not count on tugboat captain Eddie Griffin surviving a brutal attack on this vessel. Eddie Griffin joins forces with an undercover FBI agent. What? I had to stop for a second. What? And enters a fast-paced race against time to make sure that this EMP does not set off. My verdict is a very fast-paced, hands-on film, full of hand-to-hand combat, gun combat, along with a few explosions. This is definitely a must-watch film. Great actors, actresses, and camera work has ensured that this film is worth a watch.
Wow.
8 out of 10 stars. Well, thank you, Lost in Funk UK. Your contribution is appreciated. And that's it, Mr. Stallone. Your Stallone connection this week is writer Stephen E. D'Souza, a guy who laughed whatever talent he had in 1989. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Sometimes you lose that fastball.
So I'm looking at the theatrical release poster for Blast, and I'm pretty sure at least somebody called it Blast in the Blurriest when they saw this.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you squint your eyes so that the view's blurry, it kind of looks like Fast and Furious.
Mm-hmm.
Going through tab.
Thus, the wordplay there, like Blast and Blurriest.
Yeah, we get it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we get it.
Just making sure. You guys are slow sometimes. I just want to help.
Thank you. We need that help sometimes.
Thank you.
All right, here at Here Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does The Return of Captain Invincible fall on the Robin rating system for you?
I'm so glad you recommended this movie, Adam. And the reason I'm glad you recommended this movie is because if I'd found out about it before you recommended it, I would have recommended it. And I would have to bear the shame. I would have to bear the shame of yet another lousy
That's the funniest
movie
thing you've ever said.
It's so true, man. That's all I can think when I'm watching this is thank Christ I'm not the one who brought this to the table, because I would have. And then you guys would have been mad at me. So I'm so glad this movie's not good, man. I mean, there's no reason. If you love Christopher Lee, you don't want to watch it. If you love Alan Arkin, I'll tell you what. If Kate Fitzpatrick is your favorite actress, this is your movie. What do we call that? Oh, geez, Jason Todd.
Ooh, Jason Todd. All right, Sean, what do you got?
Oh, I hate this movie so very much. You know, like, I love how wrong-headed all the ideas are in it, and the fact. I think the fact that it's a comedy probably hurts it even more, in my opinion. Like, I probably wouldn't hate it nearly as much if they went more serious with it, but they made it a comedy, and it's
to quote Jerry Seinfeld, I'm not offended as a Jew, I'm offended as a comedian.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to be at a point with this movie where, like, I'm looking at it with my modern eyes, like I said earlier, every single moment of this movie is unsurprising, and like I know there's parts where they're trying to be funny, where like some of the nicknames are trying to be funny, and like it just never ever works.
Lot of kettle drum boings going on.
Yes, it's really, it was so hard for me to watch this movie. So for me, it's a Jason Todd. It's just awful.
Well, round them up, Mary. We got 3 Jason Todds here. Listen, Alan Arkin has left this world, and he left us with a handful of poop here on this episode of H&P. But hey, at the same time, too, there is something to be said for the time with which this was put out, and just to kind of look and go, oh, the 1980s were a rough time for superhero things, and we didn't quite get it right till the late 80s there, and then we kind of switched things up and turned it around a little bit, and thank God, because if this is what they continue to do,
what this movie really shows you is that Superman, the first Superman movie from 78, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is like, it's like a miracle how good that movie
Donner
is.
captured lightning in a bottle in a situation that, like, especially at that time, should not have worked. It should look sucky. It should be bad, but it doesn't, and it still holds up really well.
Yeah,
and
kind of astounding.
I read somewhere that there's some overlap on the effects crew between this movie and that one, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
In as much as like somebody was just like, I got fired from that one. Can I go over to this one? And as much as he worked on it.
It's kind of like, you hire the lowest ranking assistant at the biggest football program because you hope he's good. Then you find out there's a reason he was the lowest ranking assistant.
Richard Donner fired me because he said I was always drunk. He's right.
But still,
what he doesn't know is that it was actually drugs.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
He doesn't even know what he's talking about.
That idiot.
Well,
I'm so glad he didn't find out what I was really up to. He just fired me for being drunk.
If you'd have really known. Ooh. Next week we're doing something a little bit special because if you're not a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/HMP, you may not know this, but over quarantine, we went through and reviewed a whole bunch of movies, and of those movies were the Mission Impossible movies. And we reviewed all of those, coming from the original Brian De Palma one all the way up to this, and it is insane how long this series has been going. And I think of all the ones that we watched, for multiple ones, because we watched the Mission Impossible, we watched all the Matrix movies, we watched all the Fast and Furious movies. Mission Impossible was where we landed as far as like consensus of, hey, they're still doing great stuff with these Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
And so
it's actually gotten better.
Yeah, exactly. It's gotten better over the years, and we are excited for this one. It is a two-parter. This sucker's going to be long, and it's going to be insane, as all of these things are. Tom Cruise has said he wants to go Indiana Jones style and do this crap till he's 80, so, you know.
The only difference is that he's going to keep making them, unlike Harrison Ford.
Yeah. I don't want to do
won't
it.
have 30-year gaps like
That's what I mean.
Here and there.
That's what I mean.
So next week, everybody, we're going to be checking out Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. So head on out to the theater there and check that out. And join us back here next week for a little bit more Tom Cruise love, everybody. Bruce, in the meantime, where can they find more of your work? Did they review you specifically anywhere in any of the papers?
You can check out Variety, where they did not review me, but they reviewed other things, which are really good. I actually don't have a whole lot to plug right now, so I'll just say go outside and breathe in some sunshine.
Go touch some grass, everybody. Sean, what else?
We've got a show called Secret Invasion 30 Questions, Marvel 30 Questions. Check that out, where each week we review the latest episode of Marvel's Secret Invasion.
Check it out, everybody. And, of course, join us next week for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. For Sweet Sean Zakovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.